It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Professor Linda Villarosa. Professor Villarosa is a contributing writer for the New York Times Magazine, where she addresses pressing and immediate issues of public health and social justice. She has won numerous awards for her outstanding journalism. Her essay on medical myths was published in the 1619 Project, a new origin study, one of several of her books that have been on the New York Times bestseller list. Her most recent book, entitled Under the Skin: The Hidden Toll of Racism on American Lives and on the Health of Our Nation, was a finalist for last year's Pulitzer Prize. Professor Villarosa was previously an editor of Essence magazine, and she is a professor at the Craig Newmark School of Journalism at City University of New York. And so, welcome, Professor Villarosa.
Thank you, Dr. Siegel, and all of the directors of your programs, the professors who taught you and led you to today. Special greetings to my fellow travelers, I think over here, the medical educators and the storytellers. You're my people. And I want to extend big love and gratitude to my friend, Dr. Neil Baer, a pioneer and visionary who is responsible for keeping every member of my family across generations addicted to Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Here's the thing about me. I'm a journalist, and our profession is different. We love bad news. Bad news is like our Rock of Gibraltar. It's our North Star. We feed on it. We thrive on it. It gives us energy. Because bad news to us equals opportunity. So I can say without a flicker of uncertainty that now, in this moment, has never been a better time for all of you to step out into the world, the messy, messy world, and do the hard work of thinking and healing and fighting and enduring to make change for good. This is the time and the moment of opportunity. It will not be easy. I don't even like the word gaslighting, but I'm going to use it. We are experiencing a moment of extreme gaslighting when what we are being told that what is right is wrong, what is good is evil. Someone recently sent me a list of the words and phrases that we are supposedly no longer allowed to use that aren't acceptable by the current administration. All of them are basically on the cover of my book. They may trigger a red flag or worse in a federal grant proposal. I'm a journalist. Here's our media folk. Words hold weight. Words hold power. These are 8 of the hundreds of words that we have been told are now wrong. Activism, advocacy, belonging, diversity, equity, equality, inclusion, and justice. That's just 8 of them. When you first started thinking about furthering your education here, the world was different. When you first applied to this program, the country was less divisive. When you got accepted into this school and stepped onto campus and into your first class, the moment was different. And if I were addressing you at any of these earlier moments, I would not need to tell you, nor remind you of these very basic truths. Activism and advocacy, standing up for what you believe, for what you know is right, is never wrong. It makes you better. Belonging, making people feel like they matter, that they count, that they feel safe, that they feel seen, that they feel heard, that they're respected and valued, is never wrong. It makes you better. Diversity of background, of opinion, of thought, of religion, of nationality, of upbringing, of race, of class, of culture, of sexuality, of gender and gender expression is never wrong. It makes you better. Fostering a culture and climate and environment of equity and equality is never wrong. It makes you better. Making everyone feel included, and including everyone, not just the people you know, or the people you like, or the people you were raised with, or who look like you, or talk like you, or think like you, is never wrong. It makes you better. And certainly, and most importantly, why is this word on that list? Justice. Seeking it everywhere and for everyone is never wrong. It makes you better. And though we know that activism, advocacy, belonging, diversity, equity, equality, inclusion, and justice are never wrong and make us better, it will take courage to hold tight to these values and stand up for what's right. That means you must leave this campus and return to your work and your world with courage. I'd like to share with you a few acts of courage that have touched me and inspired me. My book, Under the Skin, was recently the community read for all second and third year medical students at a college not far from where I live in Brooklyn. I visited the school to talk about health equity and equality and the ideas in the book, and then opened the room to about 200 students for Q&A. One young woman, I know she was terrified, she told us that she stood up, she told us that she was planning to be an OBGYN, and she asked for advice. She had started her clinical rotations and had recently been part of a team delivering a baby. She shared that everyone, the attending, the resident, the intern, and her, the medical student, were all at the foot of the bed working to bring that baby out of the womb and into the world. But the student glanced up and saw that the mother was in excruciating pain, grimacing, moaning, and eventually crying out. No one in the room was paying attention to her. I'll add that that student and the mother were the only two people of color in that room. At that point, the young student said to me, in the most heartfelt way, I want to be a good doctor. I want to be skilled. I want to learn. But I didn't know what to do when I saw that mother suffering and in so much pain. She reminded me of my sister. And then the young woman started to cry in front of that whole room. I got up and I hugged her and I asked her, tell me, in that room on that day, what did you do? And she said, I went to the mother, I sat by her, I held her hand. And you know what we all did? We gave her a standing ovation, and I told her, you're gonna be the kind of doctor the world needs. What she did was an act of courage. I was at another medical school in another city, and two of the students were moving me from class to class where I was delivering a day of lectures. I have zero sense of direction, which meant I spent a lot of time with these guys. They were both young Black men, and they shared with me how much it took for them to get to medical school, the sacrifices their families made, the barriers they had to overcome, including undergraduate advisors who told them that they weren't smart enough to survive medical training. They also told me they had recently gotten into a dispute with one of their professors. The fight was about the eGFR, the test used to measure kidney function. Their professor was explaining to the class that it's standard practice for the eGFR estimate to be corrected for Black patients. The students asked, why would there be a different estimate based on self-reported race? And the professor told them with no irony and also no uncertainty that as a race, Black people have more muscle mass than white and other patients, which affects the test and calls for the need for the correction. One of the students stood up and he said, how do we know this? And the professor's answer was, this is standard practice. The other student went further and asked, what if the Black patient is a skinny dude like Barack Obama? And the white patient is a bodybuilder like an Arnold Schwarzenegger. The professor, now angry at being challenged, said, it's in the textbook, period. Two things are true. Yes, that race correction for the eGFR was in that textbook, and it used to be standard practice. But both that practice and the textbook were outdated, as it is now crystal clear that race is a social construct, not a biological determinant. Medical students across the country had already challenged this race correction. Many colleges had stopped teaching it, and medical organizations had changed their recommendation, which the professor was not aware of. As an aside, I had a physical earlier this year, and I looked at my test for kidney function. It had two calculations, one for Black patients like me and the other for everyone else. So this race correction based on faulty science is not entirely gone. But my point is, it took guts for those two young medical students to walk out of class, report the professor to the administration. It took courage. My last source of inspiration comes from my friend Michelle Browder, who is an artist and an activist in Montgomery, Alabama. That's the city where Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus in the 1950s and where MacArthur genius Bryan Stevenson founded the Equal Justice Institute and the Legacy Museum and Memorial. Montgomery is also the city where J. Marion Sims practiced in the mid-1800s. There, he achieved status as the so-called father of modern gynecology for pioneering a remedy for fistula, an extreme side effect of childbirth. His surgery was long considered one of medicine's most important breakthroughs in history. But less known was that he achieved this breakthrough by practicing painful operations on the bodies of enslaved women without anesthesia, under the false notion that Black people have extremely high tolerance of physical and emotional pain. More than a century and a half later, Dr. Sims was called out by scholars and activists for torturing the three enslaved women in particular, Lucy, Anarcha, and Betsy. The statue of him was removed from Central Park, where I live, across the street from the New York Academy of Medicine, bye-bye, where it had been since 1934. But a statue of him remains in Montgomery, Alabama. That drew the ire of local artist Michelle Browder. She is not in public health, she's not a doctor, she is an artist. To fight back, she created an alternate sculpture garden called the Mothers of Gynecology, featuring larger-than-life 15-foot recreations of Lucy, Anarcha, and Betsy, not far from the Legacy Memorial. Then Michelle went a step further by taking a financial leap of faith, she does not have money, and buying the land where Dr. Sims' clinic stood. Michelle is now in the completion stage of opening a health and wellness clinic to offer primary and prenatal care for women on the very site of Dr. Sims' atrocities. That takes courage. I urge each and every one of you to think deeply and often about courage, reminding yourselves that even small acts of courage lead to transformation and change. Sometimes the courage may be standing up for yourself. I'm going to tell you a personal story that happened to me. I was a 22-year-old, just graduated from college. I had my first job at a magazine. I was super happy. I marched into that magazine the first day, and I noticed that everybody was a little shady. I later found out that my boss, before I came in, had told everybody on the staff that I was an affirmative action hire. So, was I an affirmative action hire? Maybe. I was the only Black person, for sure, person of any color on that staff. I was also the only person that did not have a direct connection to the editor-in-chief or his wife, and the only person who was not from Pennsylvania, where our boss was from. I was deeply hurt. I did the right thing, and I called my mother, and I said, this terrible thing happened to me, they're so mean to me, I thought I was gonna have this great career, and now blah, blah, blah. And she said, girl, pull yourself together. And then she told me what to do, how to think about that woman. And the word starts with an F, and the end is her. And I kind of did. I lasted for 2 years. Here's how I think about her now. One of us wrote a really good book, was a finalist for a Pulitzer Prize, and that wasn't her. It was the affirmative action hire. The other one of us, gets to be here speaking to all you amazing, beautiful, prestigious, smart, brilliant, joyful people. That's not her. It's the affirmative action hire. And this is the best part. A few Sundays a year, she has to look down at her doorstep where the New York Times magazine is there, and she looks at the cover byline for a story on public health, and that byline isn't her, it's the affirmative action hire. I want to leave you with two of my very, very famous quotes. The first one comes from the late Nobel Prize-winning writer, Toni Morrison. Though I admit I did a little editing to fit today's occasion, it goes like this-ish. In times of dread, we must never remain silent. This is precisely the time when good people go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we take actions. That's how civilizations heal. Your mission, your goal, your opportunity must be healing our civilization with the magical combination of knowledge, evidence, truth, science, combined with patience, care, kindness, and love. And you are not alone in your work, your courageous work. You have everyone who brought you here, who taught you, who believe in you, who love you, and you have each other. My final quote, my other favorite quote, this one from the Pulitzer Prize-winning poet Gwendolyn Brooks, who, like my own mother, graduated from Inglewood High School on the south side of Chicago. We are each other's harvest, we are each other's business, we are each other's magnitude and bond. Thank you.